I really appreciate the question there, Lori. It made me think about, my next question is like, is there a magic question that you ask folks in the one-on-ones or the skip levels that can help reveal more signal around how they're doing, beyond just asking how are you, or like, I guess recognizing the energy in the room. Do you all have, like, I guess, your favorite sort of casually non-invasive investigative questions that you ask folks to get to understand how they are doing?
I love that, casually non-invasive. The my thought is really about so Erica alluded to this in terms of like active listening and not being in a position where you're asking a question and sort of waiting to respond, but really listening. And oddly enough, a lot of what you can hear is not said. A lot of what is said is sort of in between the lines. And so rather than always asking somebody, how are you doing? What I'll actually start my one-on-ones with now is say, hey, how are things at home? Like, what's the latest? And it's weird. It gets people talking about what's happening at home as opposed to sort of necessarily telling what they're feeling, because they may not want to. And in the process of telling you what's happening at home, this comes out. It's like, well, we've had issues with pickups and drop-offs. Like, between my partner and I, we're having a hard time figuring out who should do the pickups, who should do the drop-offs. And if you think about school pickups, they're sort of in the witching hour of most people's meetings. So you ask a question like that, and it starts to sort of unravel other things. And those things are not always easily captured when you ask somebody how they're doing, but it's really about what's in between the lines. This has been very powerful for me. The other thing that I've done is I've had one-on-ones where, we schedule 30 minutes. I start out by asking how things are going at home. We're 15 or 20 minutes in, and I say, do you have anything for me? And they say no, and I say, okay, cool. We can end this. And they're like, well, aren't we going to talk about the work? I'm like, no, not today. Don't want to talk about the work today. And that becomes one of those things where it's not just about that one-on-one, but it becomes about the next conversation. And you look at it as an arc. You don't look at it as these isolated 30 minutes with everybody, but you think about like creating connection over time. So it's not just questions. It's also treating these meetings as an ongoing thing, not like a point in time, and listening for the things that are sort of in between the lines.
I just liked the question that Sabry has, which is asking, how home is going, because obviously he's asked me that plenty of times, and he gets like a whole bunch of text messages after that. So I can tell you it works, number one. And then, but number two, I think what also happens is then you start to learn something about that person, what's going on in their life. Then the next time that you meet them, how, for instance, in my case, my kids were going to different schools and I was switching schools. Guess what? There's a process to apply, there's a process to accept, there's a process on the first day, and it becomes a reoccurring conversation where now you feel that individual gets you. You kind of know what's going on even the next week before you even go into that one-on-one. Hey, how was the first day of school? And wow, you really listen to me, you have empathy, you know what's going on. And the more that we have those type of conversations, the more I'm going to tell you what's going on. But if we don't have that trust and we don't have that relationship, and I don't feel like you don't get me, guess what? It ain't going to happen, and you're not going to know anything about me, and I'm going to be tightened up, and it's not going to work. So the more that we can build upon and make it a reoccurring conversation and an evolution, I think is key. Lori, your turn.
Yeah, there's three questions I've been asking lately, Patrick. So I'll share those three with you. The first one is, what brings you joy? It doesn't have to be about work, but I try to include work in there, and like, just give me a list of the things that what brings you joy right now. And then my second questions are kind of tied to that. What in your day is energy additive and what is energy depleting? And then they can kind of pick and choose, like, this part of my project, whether it's something that's a bit more mundane or maintenance type work versus big, ideation around what's happening for the future. I can kind of get a sense of what those signals are for them, or triggers, that things that are pulling that energy down, things that would add back. And then I asked the last one, if you could add one thing that would either add more joy or add more balance to your scales, what would that one thing be? So it becomes a bit more self-discovery for them a little bit to kind of figure out what do they want to tell me. But if I go straight into, and I do the same things that Sabry and Erica do, when I have an authentic relationship up close with someone, I can go like, how's home? How's family? How's what's happening? But when I'm working with someone who may be someone I know, but I don't work with them as closely, I don't have that deep of a relationship, I try to use those questions because I am very interested in knowing the answers to those questions. And it helps them open up a little bit more about some very specific, areas that they can kind of tie back to. But I think all of those kind of getting your own set of things that you can authentically ask from a place of caring and intention. Because if you ask it just because we said, here's the three things we ask, it's not going to work. You have to actually really care and want to know, and then it'll open up the
By the
floodgates.
way, can we stick on that point for just a second? I think this is really important. These are not like the management 101, let me go follow these check boxes and ask these questions type of things. They have to truly resonate with you. And in fact, I think they have to resonate with them, and then you have to put them in your own voice and in your own truth. And when they do truly like resonate with you and they feel authentic to you, but most importantly, when you care about how other people are doing in such a way that these questions can then come out, then it lands. If this is so important, what Lori is saying is so important. If you look at these as sort of methods you can use without making them resonate with you as a person, I don't think they will land. They have to be in your own truth. They have to be in your own voice.